Okay, let's get started on step 6. It's on page 31 of the guidebook. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We're going to start reading a little bit on page 75, just a couple paragraphs. Karen, would you read that?
Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free men at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, definitions: defect, out of the guidebook, shortcoming, imperfection, want of something necessary for completeness. I looked at another dictionary and got this definition: defect, shortcoming, imperfection, lack. So one dictionary says want of something necessary for completeness, the other dictionary says lack. See, I always thought a defect of character meant that I was the bad stuff that I did. That was my defects of character. This is starting to look like maybe I've been operating without all my pieces. Like maybe that's a defect. I mean, something that's defective, it's either broken, some piece of it's messed up, or maybe something's missing. Like your car's defective if it's missing a wheel. It's what we're lacking. So taking that into account, let's look at the bullet points on page 31 of the guide. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Carefully reviewing the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, what is it? We ask God to help us be willing. So if you read those just as a bunch of bullets, it starts to look like this is sort of a reflection step. This is where I look back over my first 5 steps and ask myself, is there something I didn't tell my sponsor in my 5th step? Now that I see it better, is there more to it? Or have I been thorough? We're trying to make sure we've been thorough with our first 5 steps. If a defect is a lack of something, then our act has not allowed us to be our whole, honest self. Let's say that my act has been around the exact nature of needing to have a certain reputation. That's what my act has been. That's the exact nature of my act. And isn't that what it said in step 5? The exact nature of our wrong? So we come into step 6 knowing the exact nature of our wrong. The exact nature of my wrong is I've been trying to secure self-esteem or security out of this world with my act. Now in step 6, we're looking at specific ways we've done that. How do I do that? Well, I lie to people. I'm not honest. I don't let them see my whole self. The very act of doing the 5th step, where we have been our complete naked self in front of somebody, is the first time maybe we've ever done that. Probably is, in fact. So for once, we've tested the water a little bit of being deceiteless, of being who we are in front of another person. We start to see that the angles Well, isn't that what some of the guys call it in the program? Don't you hear that sometimes? I've been working angles. I've been working my angles. Well, that's the character defects, is what do those angles look like that I've been working? Have I misused my sex powers? What kind of stuff do I try to get out of using my sex powers? Security? Significance? Self-esteem? These are all ways that the methods of our management is the defects of character. And usually, surprisingly enough, the defect is that we've been afraid to use some things. Like if we are working on our reputation all the time, that's the exact nature of our wrong, probably we're pretty careful about what we say. We don't want that guy that just blurts it out being part of the act. We want the guy that's really, really, really careful about everything running this act. So what have I been missing? I've been missing that guy that just puts it out there. Interestingly enough, Bill Wilson was a New York stockbroker. He writes an inventory on resentment, and then psychology years later catches up and realizes that usually people that we resent are people that are acting in a way we would never want to act like. It's probably what we're missing right there. I was talking to a woman one time that did her inventory, and she absolutely hated this woman that she worked with that was just a frilly, feminine Dolly Parton. She hated this woman. Well, the woman that I was working with was about as feminine as nothing. I mean, you couldn't tell her from a man. See, she was afraid to be feminine. The exact nature of her wrong was being in control of everything. Her character defect was she wasn't feminine. And for her, and that's why she hated this woman. She hated femininity in that woman and in her own self also. So we learned that from psychology. Bill Wilson didn't have to know all that. Somehow he knew to just write down your resentments and you got it covered. So when we get here and we realize, like for this woman, I've got to be feminine, to be real, to be whole, to be free of deceit. I'm going to have to begin to be feminine because that's what I am. Well, that's pretty scary to her. Are you entirely ready to do that? Are you willing to let God make you feminine? That was the question to her. Are you willing? Are you entirely ready? It's not that easy. So we're looking at the willingness to start living who we are regardless of the consequences, instead of living to manage everybody and keep them in place and get our self-esteem and security from the world by managing it. In other words, finally, we're going to stop being defensive and just trying to protect ourselves from the world with our ability to manage, and we're going to start to be who we are in the world. We start being awakened to the idea that I'm here by right, by purpose, by God's will to be who I am. I don't need to apologize to anybody for who I am. I can be who I am. And man, that sounds refreshing, doesn't it? But it's scary. Because, for instance, this woman I'm using for an example, for her to be who she was, she had to do something that was very frightening for her, which was give up a lot of control by being feminine and being more vulnerable and sensitive and submissive. So am I entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character? And of course, there's this one very important question. See, step 6, when you can say, okay, I'm ready, you're done with step 6. This is a 10-minute job after you review things. If you're not entirely ready, like let's say this woman I'm talking about can't quite come to terms with being willing to be completely feminine, well, in her case, maybe she just has to ask God to help her be willing. I suggest that you be careful about that because he'll make you willing. He's got his ways, and it ain't always fun. He gets you through the door, though.